I love playing with new players. I love introducing people to Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games. There was even a time where I found myself without a core group in a weekly game that I just started running brand new players through Lost Mines of Phandelver over and over every week, and it was a blast. If you're a longtime Dungeon Master, new players can bring a certain vigor and excitement to the game that older veterans sometimes just don't come to the table with. But that being said, I've introduced a lot of new players to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition since its release, and for me, there has started to emerge a few patterns, certain mistakes, if you will, that continue to pop up, specifically in character creation. Now, I don't think that these are mistakes like, whoa, you did that wrong, but rather mistakes that players sometimes can come to regret, or mistakes that might shape the player's experience in a way that might take away some of the fun dynamics and collaborative group storytelling. So I want to talk about these character creation taboos, but in a positive way, that hopefully I can share some of my experiences with these examples to just help people make characters that not only they, but that the entire table can enjoy and root for. The first character creation taboo is one that very often gets overlooked, and that's not creating a character appropriate to the campaign, or as another way to put it, creating a character regardless of the campaign and setting. I talk a lot on this channel about how dungeon masters and game masters need to set the right expectations for their game up front. If the campaign is going to be heavily giant themed, tell the players, right? But that doesn't do the group any good if the players don't take that information into consideration when creating their characters. And I totally understand that players they're just excited, right? They're pumped up and excited about a new D&D campaign, and they want to get right to working on building out that fallen paladin that has amnesia, needs to find the truth behind their powers. As a dungeon master, that's great that you have a really awesome character concept in mind. But in a lot of cases, players are doing themselves a disservice by putting the cart kind of before the horse in this case. Before you even start to come up with a character concept, you should at least speak with your game master to get a better idea of what type of game and setting the campaign will be in. It doesn't do you any good to create that perfect servant of Kelemvor out to destroy the foul undead abominations across the land, and the campaign is taking place primarily in the Sea of Swords with a ton of ship-to-ship combat. Or if your group is running Storm King's Thunder and you're trying to prevent giants from overrunning Golden Fields. Think of it like being an actor and trying out for a part in a new sci-fi movie, and you show up to the audition with your best Nash Bridges impersonation, just determined to play that character. It just doesn't gel sometimes. So ask your DM about the campaign and work with them to create a character that fits the campaign. The easier it is to fit your character into the narrative, the easier it will be for the dungeon master to actually use NPCs, locations, and lore from your character's background, especially if you try to include them in the process. You would be hard-pressed to find a dungeon master that wouldn't appreciate you bouncing a few different background ideas off of them when creating your character. And remember guys, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If your character fits the DM's narrative well because you worked with them during the character creation process, they are far more likely to write in character hooks for you than someone who tells them that they already have a character, they've played them before, they just want to bring them back for this game and leaves it at that. The second character creation taboo is playing the same character over and over again. This also falls right into that category of this isn't a game-wrecking mistake, but rather something that players tend to do that I consider a disservice to themselves. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is a game where we get to play heroes who live in a world where laws of physics can be regularly broken with magic, where we can play a cut-purse Robin Hood or a brazen knight facing down an ancient dragon plaguing the land. So when I see players who get kind of in a comfort zone of playing the same thing over and over, I always try to give them a gentle nudge to just try out something new. But hey, if you want to play the same character, that's your choice. But you might be surprised at just how much character development and fun you can have even with that seemingly boring barbarian. So try something new and expand your horizon, especially if you have eyes towards getting behind the screen at one point. And while I may not speak for every fellow player and Dungeon Master out there, it's also nice for us when you don't show up to the table campaign after campaign and one shot after one shot with the same predictable character. The third character creation taboo is creating a character with just too much background. This is another understandable mistake that players make, and as players who do this are, in my experience, the ones that are just the most excited about my game. But let me explain why I think this is something that you should refrain from. When you come to the table to play Dungeons & Dragons, you are there to share in a collaborative story with everyone else. Every character in the group will be going on adventures together, experiencing grief and loss, discovering new inner strengths, and dealing with impossible obstacles as a group. When you show up with 5 pages of backstory where you've been an elite trained guard, fought in a dozen wars, slain an entire orc tribe to avenge a lost loved one, found new love, experienced more tragedy when your second family died, discovered how to trust again when you were saved from the brink of death by a druid hermit, and then of course experienced more grief when he then succumbed to a mysterious illness, and now your heart is the cold, unmoving stone of a grizzled veteran, all before the campaign starts at level 1, it can be a little overwhelming, immersion breaking, and worst of all, you've created a character that has no more room for growth from future experiences. So the best piece of advice I can give you is to make sure that your character has enough road in front of them so that the biggest impacts on your character and their outlook isn't one that you wrote yourself before the game even started, but is all of the little moments that you can share and experience together with your entire group. Taboo number 4 is the opposite, and that's not having enough backstory. When I see new players do this, to me as a DM, it signals that they may not be comfortable enough yet with the concept of the game, or they may be too worried about understanding the game mechanics, so they simply didn't have the time or understanding to come up with a background. If you're a player watching this video and you feel like that describes you at times, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to just talk to your Dungeon Master. They are there to help. Even if you have a character idea, but you aren't familiar with the world that the DM has created enough to solidify those choices, that's fine. Just reach out to your DM with the general idea of what you want, and they can help you fill in those gaps. However, if you're a veteran and you show up to my table with no background at all, come on, man. I mean, if it's a beer and pretzels D&D one-shot, you know what? That's fine. But if we're sitting down to begin Horde of the Dragon Queen with the expectations of a year-long campaign, plain and simply, I'm probably not going to worry about tying your character into the game and focus on the players who at least gave me some interesting NPCs to hook their characters in. It's just some tough love. The 5th character creation taboo I have for you is creating a character without any flaws. This is a subtle one, and one I might even consider slightly towards the more advanced side of creating a character for D&D. But let me give you a simple analogy. Batman? Far more interesting than Superman. I love what Wizards of the Coast did with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition by creating these built-in backgrounds and flaws, and when you're creating a real character that is fleshed out that you can really dive into, having well-developed flaws can help you create more role-playing opportunities with your character. Infinity War spoiler coming up. Seriously. A great example of this is Star-Lord when he confronted Thanos. He simply couldn't hold himself back, and in the end, it allowed the story to be filled with extra drama. I mean, should he have kept his cool? Definitely. But that's what made the story interesting in that moment while we watched the will he or won't he inner turmoil. And finally, finally, the last character creation taboo is probably the one that jumps into mind with most experienced Dungeons & Dragons veteran, and that's creating the lone wolf. Honestly, it's tough for me to characterize why this is such a tired meme without sounding flippant about it, but I've seen too many games where the fun and buzz of roleplay within the group is quashed by the sulking edgelord in the corner. Remember, the game is not about the Dungeon Master or any individual player. It's about the group as a whole. And this character simply can be taxing on roleplay, while having the tendency to suck the fun out of the game for other players, having to endure your "I will always be a loner" character. So here's what I suggest instead. If you want to play a character who might typically be considered a loner to others, you can still play that character, but work hard in character creation to have strong bonds with the rest of the group. Maybe your character doesn't enjoy meeting new people or is slow to trust. Then perhaps the one or two people she does trust is her half-elf companion who she's known for years. Then when it comes time to discuss a possible quest with someone looking to hire the group out, maybe she just naturally defaults to what her trusted friend thinks. If you want to play a character with deep inner turmoil, do it, but have the 3 or 4 traveling companions be the very people who can bring you out of your shell and make it easy for them to do so. Nobody wants to have to spend game time constantly role-playing just to help motivate your character. Just enough for the flavor, and move on to the fun of the game. Okay guys, now I want to pass it over to you in the community. What do you guys consider mistakes and taboos? Have there been any types of characters that you regretted, and why? For me, it was Rendragel, my arrogant, power-hungry gnome wizard. What I thought would be kind of a fun Raceland type turned out to be a confrontational character that I just didn't enjoy. So I'd love to hear about your mistakes so we can all learn from them. Also guys, I want to let everyone know some exciting news about a huge game I'm going to be hosting right here on the channel live on July 24th. Myself, Dave from Nerdarchy, Guy from How to Be a Great GM, and Ben from Puffin Forest will all join forces in the world premiere live event for the new Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory game. And we'll be joined by the amazing lead designer for the game, Ross Watson, as the game master. I'm really excited about this game, and I'd love to have you guys in the community come just hang out with us and enjoy some of the rich lore of the Warhammer 40k universe. Also, as a side note, this is not a sponsored video at all, but I'll put a link down in the description where you guys can go and check out the game right now and pre-order it if it's something that you're interested in. I want to give a huge shout out to all of the kick-ass patrons over at welcomeadventures.com. Guys, I love making videos for you guys, and if you like this video, you want to see more content like this, even with a buck or two, that's a great way to support over at welcomeadventures.com. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I put out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit the subscribe button down below and come join us. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.